The crackle of the radio interrupts all conversation.
Lincoln 6-1.
We pause, listen, waiting for the calls to subside before continuing. Officer Adam Gilmore sits in the driver's seat, one hand on his coffee, the other on the steering wheel. He speaks in short bursts with a Cleveland accent. We've been driving his patrol for about 30 minutes, waiting for something interesting to happen. As we drive past the new UH building, the sedan in front of us turns left from the right lane. I immediately expect the sirens to go on and a chase to ensue, but Officer Gilmore decides to make the same turn and follow the car out of the area. "If I get stuck giving this guy a citation," he says, "what if something happens and I'm needed and I'm stuck here? Better to just follow him out. He's probably just lost or something." As I've been told a couple of times, the University Circle Police Department has no incentive to give tickets to anyone. They don't have quotas, they don't get any cut of their citations, they only use tickets to deter people from endangering the public. If that guy ran a red and almost hit a pedestrian, yeah, I'd pull him over, give him a ticket. But right now, he's not hurting anybody. Left turn, right turn, straight, left turn. Officer Gilmore has orders to spend more time on the north side of town because of the rash of robberies around Case Western Reserve University. I find it interesting that the phrase "rash of" is used so often. It's almost like the cops see crime in this area as a blemish on an otherwise well-groomed community. Sergeant Mike Piscura used the same term during roll call before Officer Gilmore returned to the station. Roll call, the daily meeting in which the officers coming on duty are briefed on events that occurred since the end of their last shift, takes place in a small room equipped with a TV, a small table, and a few chairs. The sergeant and the two officers attending, bigger guys, make the room feel small, despite its high ceiling and the fact that they are just sitting at the table in the corner. Another officer, nearing middle age, just getting off duty, pops her head in. "Hey Sergeant, did that car thing make it to the CAD sheets?" He gives her a questioning look. "Some lady slashed somebody's tires over that new hotel yesterday. 2 witnesses, someone said she worked there or just got fired or something. I'm not doing the report now, nothing's due till Thursday." "Yep, sure. One of you guys go get a statement." "I got it," Officer Gilmore volunteers. Officer Gilmore and I pass the building in which an apartment was burglarized, and he tells me to keep an eye out for a man fitting the given description. I ask him, "That's a pretty vague description, isn't it? How do you identify someone looking suspicious?" "It's all about being aware. I had a field training officer who could spot stuff that I'd never see. He'd see a lady getting out of a car and forget to lock it from 100 yards away. Or maybe someone trying to wave at us like they needed help. So it's a learned skill." "Yeah, it takes practice." "So what do you do if you see someone that might be your guy?" "Well, I try and ID him, talk to the other officers at the station, you know." I'm still confused about how any of this is done, but I don't want to belabor the idea, so we move on. A call comes over the radio for car 14. We're car 13, but according to Officer Gilmore, dispatch has probably forgotten that car 14 is down, so he answers. A Crown Victoria, car 14 is a great car. The general consensus is that the Crown Vic, with its heavier frame, great speed, and fantastic handling, is the best squad car they have. It's better than the Escape we're in now, and certainly better than the Jeeps that the Chief purchased a few years ago. The Jeeps don't come with a police kit, so our guy had to machine a bunch of stuff himself, Officer Gilmore explains. These Escapes come with the kits, so we don't have to machine anything. The station mechanic is renowned in the area. The UCPD gets calls from several other area departments looking for maintenance. In addition to this service, they offer parking and office space to the adjacent businesses, all of which are owned by University Circle Incorporated. Alright, let's go get this statement. We head to the Doubletree Hotel, the location of the tire slashing. Headed towards the hotel, Officer Gilmore and I joke about why slashing someone's tires would be a good idea. His laugh has a wide range. Sometimes it's a light chuckle, sometimes a squeak, sometimes even a chortle. "I guess it's something we all think about," he says, "but rational people just don't do it. I guess that's what separates us from them, that rationality." "Yeah, I guess so." I see this as a good opportunity to ask one of my prepared interview questions. How do you see the people you investigate? Are they bad people doing bad things, or good people trying to make ends meet? Adam takes a second to think about it. "Well, the thing about this area is that there isn't a lot of poverty or drugs, so we don't see a lot of stuff, but, you know, a few blocks over, there are some bad neighborhoods with a lot of that. It's a bad combination, drugs and poverty. Sometimes people are just taking advantage. Sometimes they've just fallen on hard times, need something to get by." The Peter B. Lewis building might be the absolute worst possible location for a gunfight. Because of its design, there are no corners, only rounded hallways. There isn't any good cover or reflective surfaces to see further around the curve, so every step could be a step into the bad guy's crosshairs. The only available cover of any kind is the space in front of each classroom door, which is vulnerable to attack from above, just like every other part of the building. Sergeant Kirikawa, now the deputy chief of the UCPD, and Sergeant Stein, now a lieutenant, crept through the halls, pistols drawn and utility belts clicking and jingling slightly with each step. Kirikawa himself has a hard time talking about it now. Long pauses, a deepened voice, and a hardened face characterize his story. Whimpers slipped out from under the classroom doors, but the two policemen weren't in a position to take care of the cowering students and faculty. Eliminating the threat was the first priority. Kirikawa's eyes tried to take in everything, every motion, every shadow, every exposed pipe that could be a gun barrel. Adrenaline rocketed through his veins and sweat flowed from his pores. The gunman walked around a curve and saw the two policemen. Simultaneously, both sides raised their weapons and fired. The cops took what little cover they could in the alcove of a classroom, but they weren't protected enough to withstand much of a fight. They exchanged fire, took cover, exchanged fire. Suddenly, all went quiet. The shooter had gone. The sergeants became keenly aware of their exposed position and fell back to the door, tapping out so that SWAT, then on the scene, could take over. They survived. Others did not. True freedom is a precious thing. Growing up, I never really experienced what life could be like with the ability to make a choice for yourself. Pretty much everything has always been laid out for me. Not necessarily handed out, but there has certainly been a path from which I could not stray, a course that I did not lay. Even during the years when I probably could have gotten away with doing whatever I wanted because my parents were too busy dealing with my troubled brother, I felt compelled to stick to the plan. Without the plan, what did I have? I was 13, 14, barely old enough to make a choice and understand that there are consequences associated with that decision. Now, at 18, I make decisions based on the consequences. I consider it part of being an adult, making good choices, bad choices, and gauging the difference. However, this point of view has come from seeing my brother do things, sometimes horrible things, like driving a van, while high, full of kids, also high, to a movie with his little brother, not high, in the back seat, all without any outcome other than, remember that time? Sure, he lost his freedom for a year and a half during the worst of his addiction, but he left his confinement as soon as he turned 18 and returned home immediately. The world has certain rules and expectations that have to be followed in order for society to function. Typically, we call these rules laws and have people who are employed by the government to enforce them. We call these people police because they police the actions of those who violate our social code. The chief,
John E. Pavlich, chief of the University Circle Police Department,
is an older man.
Personally, I'm old school. I used to love the revolvers. I thought they were much better weapons. I felt more comfortable with them.
Drafted during the Vietnam War, Pavlovich became a medic and spent his war in a military hospital in Texas. He talks of managing the clinic, in which he saw the brutalities of war secondhand. He wasn't in the jungle, seeing the limbs lying next but not attached to bodies. He only saw the torsos, the remaining legs, the faces that came back. The 1,000-yard stare creeps into his eyes as he talks about it, hands folded in front of him as he leans back in his creaky wooden chair. He speaks of his luck. He lost friends, brothers. Not everyone died, but most came back different. His voice seems to carry the weight of his many years on the job. His words are heavy with experience and tiredness. Chief Pavlovich is all about community.
Not an occupying army,
he says. He's even written an 18-page paper on the topic of community policing, noting that there is no such thing as, "it's not my job." He may know that few of his officers have read it, since the fact that this essay exists isn't posted anywhere and no one ever mentions it, but it's out there nonetheless. Sergeant Leff, the one who gave it to me in the first place, had it because he wrote his own paper, to which I am not privy because it contains sensitive information, which references the chief at several points. Pavlovich's approach to this idea of
community-oriented policing
is built around
respect. Treat people with respect and with respect.
A word that he uses constantly.
His verbal judo class is verbal judo.
Verbal judo.
Verbal judo
is a form of mental martial art that Pavlovich insists that his officers use. In a perfect world, approaching someone who is breaking the law with a firm, polite word in a respectful manner beats pretty much every other alternative. However, not every situation can be resolved with a few solid commands and a warning.
Personally, I would prefer to use non-deadly anytime.
He says. When asked about the claims that non-lethal weapons increase the likelihood of an officer using any kind of force, Pavlovich responds in his slow, heavy sort of way, as if he knows that his words carry weight.
The way you approach somebody, even in your daily life, if you treat people with respect the way you'd like to be treated, normally you're going to get compliance. What I always liked about police work, especially when you were out on the road, you were kind of like your own boss. You didn't have somebody looking over your shoulder.